So we're recording. So what's happening now is that you are seeing me because we're going to have a virtual review of the things that you're going to take up in your exams. And to start with, this whole video series will be cut into segments. The first part is that we're going to talk about the road not taken, which we already talked about in parts during the time that we still had face-to-face classes. And then next stop is that we're going to talk about the gift of the Magi. And then after that, we're going to talk about the thief who became a disciple. And then some other passages. So we're going to perhaps divide this whole series into maybe 5 videos. So the first video is going to be the road not taken. So again, this is a review for your upcoming exams. So I suggest that as you listen or watch this video, you also get the copy that I sent you last time, right? The stuff that I sent you on the messenger, and then open it so that you can follow or maybe get your notebooks and write stuff down as you listen to my very beautiful voice. So yeah, I think that's the introduction. So I'm going to give you time to get your notes, get your stuff, and then we're going to talk about the road not taken. I'm gonna wait for like a minute. Okay, I think you're done. 1 minute is, I think, over. So we are going to talk about the roads taken. The first thing I'm gonna do is that I'm going to read this, and then I'm gonna share the screen and you follow along. Okay. So I'm gonna share the screen right now. Okay, it's there on the screen, and you see me there as well at the bottom left or right, wherever. So yeah, okay. How about this? This view is better. Oh yeah, this is better. Although it's a lot smaller, so maybe we could adjust this. I don't think so. Okay, this is the better choice actually. Okay, road not taken. Listen closely. The road not taken. Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about this fame, and both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. Okay, so I'm gonna read this again in case you missed something. Okay, but I'm not gonna do this in the other text, which are longer. So for this case, in the road not taken, I'm going to read it twice. So listen closely once again. The road not taken, Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet, knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. Okay, so like what I said during our face-to-face classes, when you encounter a poem, this is a poem. When you encounter a poem, you have to understand that we're dealing with metaphors. We're not dealing with literal stuff right here. So we've already talked about in passing about metaphors, and when we talk about metaphors, we mean that one thing doesn't mean itself. One thing means another thing. Okay, in a literal sense, if A means A, in the metaphor sense, it's A means B. So one thing doesn't mean itself. One thing means another thing. So when we talk about the road not taken, maybe we're not talking about the road. Okay. So maybe there are other stuff that we're actually talking about here. So the point here is that again, when you encounter a poem, you have to understand that you're dealing with metaphor. You're dealing with other meanings. Okay. So now we're going to look at the poem and then at a glance. Okay, you don't have to really read it deeply the first time. What you're going to do is that you have to look at it at a glance and then try to then just read it, you know, feel the whole thing, and then find out the words or find the words that you have trouble uh, understanding. So for example, in the first line, maybe you do not know what the word diverged mean. Okay. So that is the first thing that you have to do. You have to learn what are the difficult terms in the poem. So for the first line, we have diverged, right? The second line, maybe there are no hard words here. So we have only diverged so far. Third line, and be one traveler long stood. We don't have any difficult words here, I think. When you have a problem with the word stood, it's just the past tense of stand. Okay, so long I stood meaning long I stand in the past form. And look down one as far as I could, so no hard words there, to where it bent in the undergrowth. So we have here maybe bent, and we also have undergrowth. So bent is the past form of the word bend. So when you bend something, it's you try to curve it, right? Try to make an arch out of that straight thing. So that's bent. And then undergrowth, it means just sagbot, okay? Many shrubs and leaves and all those stuff. Those are indications that there's an undergrowth. Undergrowth again is just a term that we use to refer to areas where there are a lot of plants. Okay, especially plants that just grow out of sheer nature. Kanang wala siya giplano, no landscaping. It's just there, undergrowth. Tubo lang siya. Okay. Also, we have diverged already. We have bent. We have undergrowth. Yeah, I haven't talked about diverged. When you talk about diverged, again, when you encounter the word, or I mean the sound D uh, with DI, it could probably mean two. So when you talk about diverged or diverged, it means separated into two. Okay, so for example, the two roads diverged in a yellow wood. So meaning there is this one road and then it's split into two, right? So that's diverged. So now we continue. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim. Perhaps is another unfamiliar word. It means maybe. So like having perhaps the better claim, having maybe the better claim. Okay. Next line, because it was grassy and wanted wear or wanted wear. So we have grassy, of course, too much grass. And then wanted, wanted wear. Wear here doesn't function as something that you put on as with clothes. You don't talk about clothes here. Wear meaning um gradual decay. Okay. Where gradual, you know, gradual decay, gradual destruction, something like that. It's like weakening. Okay. When you talk about wanted wear, um, you are referring to an idea where something is not yet decaying. So when it's not yet decaying, maybe you can say it's wanted wear. It wants to somehow decay. But the point here if the point here is that when you say wanted, it doesn't really mean that you're being looked at, you're wanted in a criminal sense. Wanted means wanted where means it's just it's fresh. It's not um decaying. Okay, that is the point. Though as for the passing there had warned them really about the same. Warn is the past tense of where. Okay. So worn, decayed. And both that morning equally lay, and leaves no step had trodden black. Trodden is the past participle of the word tread. When I talk about tread, it means you step on. See? So, gitamakan, that is trodden. So, trodden black, kanang gitamakan ni mo nga ni itom. Okay? Where does that happen? When you step on leaves, right? So pag step ka sa leaves, especially when they're dry, you step on them, eventually those leaves where someone has trodden, mangitom na siya, it becomes black, right? So that is what we're talking about here. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. So we have this word sigh, meaning uh, it's like a forceful exhale, right? Kanang mangagho ka for kung sa Bisaya kanang mangagho kanang something like that. That is a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence meaning of from some time before and then until now. Wala siya hence. So when I talk about somewhere ages and ages hence, ages meaning years. So ages and ages meaning many years. Hence, from that moment on, wala siya hence. So the hence here or the moment that we're talking about is the decision of going into those the decision to where or to which road to go for. Okay, mo na siya ang moment na ginamindra. So from that moment hence until this very day, mo na yung ginamit. Somewhere ages and ages hence, since that time until now, two roads diverge in a wood, and so we already know what diverge mean. I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Okay, so I think we've covered the whole poem, and then we've already talked about the difficult words that you have to know in order to analyze the poem. Okay, so here on the on this side, what is this? On this side of the screen, you will see uh boxes where there are texts, there are words, and then these are the concepts that we have to understand in this poem so that in your exams you can answer the questions. So the first thing is that the central metaphor, the road the roads symbolize life's journey, and the branch represents decision making. And also in the second box, the nature of choices and their impact on individual's life. Choices significantly shape one's life, and the speaker reflects on the roads not taken. So here are some concepts that you have to read as you have to analyze as you read this poem. So what we're gonna do now is that we're going to interpret or analyze this poem so that you understand what's happening in the whole thing. Okay. So before that, I want you to take a break for a while, maybe a minute or so, and then find a chair if you're still standing. Find a spot where you can truly review, and maybe you can drink some water or anything. Okay, health break, 1 minute. Okay, let's continue. The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Now, this poem, The Road Not Taken, this is a very famous poem written by Robert Frost back in the, I don't know, maybe 1920s or 30s. Not sure. But it's pre-war, meaning before pa ng World War One or World War Two, something like that. I think it's World War Two, but I don't know. I forgot. The thing here is that we have to know that The Road Not Taken is a very famous poem, and everybody in everybody who has experienced school will probably have the opportunity or the experience of reading this poem. So for you guys, this is your experience of the poem. So yeah, The Road Not Taken is a famous poem, and it talks about decisions, okay, and taking the road less traveled by. However, let me tell you that maybe that is not necessarily the point. Many of the features that you're going to encounter in the future, perhaps, or many stuff on YouTube, if you're going to research on this poem, a lot of resources would tell you that this is about decisions, this is about choices, this is about taking the road less traveled by. Kanang dito ka ni subay sa dalan nga wala ka ayo ni subay, right? Mana siya mana siya theme ani nga poem, but let me contend that maybe it's not really about that. Okay. So why do I say so? Let's try to analyze this poem first. We already know that there is metaphor here. We already know that there are words that are probably difficult to understand, but you have already understood these words already because we discussed it a bit to the Nina. So yeah, this is it. So the first thing we have to understand the literal sense of the poem. So two roads diverged in a yellow wood. Okay, so there are two roads. It's split into two. I mean, there's this one road, and then eventually it's split into two, and it diverged in a yellow wood. Now, the wood here is not kahoy. Okay, the wood here is it's like a forest of sorts. It's like that. Okay, dili siya kahoy. So kakahuyan ni siya. Okay. So yellow wood. So the wood here is yellow, but we do not mean that there is a kahoy and then it's painted yellow. Yellow means it's autumn. Okay. Ngano nakaingon man ta nga autumn na siya because we have to remember that Robert Frost is an American poet, and probably the setting of this poem is somewhere over there sa America, and we all know that in those places, for example, in America, there are four seasons, right? In the Philippines, we only have two. We have the rainy season and the summer or the sunny season, right? So we only have two. But in other places, for example, in America, there are four seasons, right? We have the winter, kung kanasa nag-snow. We have the spring, where the flowers bloom, the leaves go green and stuff like that. It feels so alive during spring because everything blooms. Winter, spring, summer. We have summer. We already know what summer is. It's hot, all that stuff. And then we have winter, spring, summer, and fall. Okay, otherwise known as autumn. So we have the fall slash autumn. So what happens there is that the leaves, the flowers, all the undergrowth, uh, they decay, they dry, they fall off. Okay, and in the process, they turn, man sa man kung malaya ang dahon, they become brown. But before they become brownish, first they somehow become yellowish. So maybe mo na siya ang image. Okay, the setting here is that this happens during fall. Manang yellow wood na siya. Okay, so two roads diverge in a yellow wood. And sorry, I could not travel both. So here the speaker is just telling us now, of course, because he or she is one person, he cannot or she cannot travel two roads at the same time. So kailangan siya mamili, right? Sorry, I could not travel both. So it's like that. And be one traveler, long I stood. So, and be one traveler, meaning he remains as one traveler. Then long I stood, meaning there is waiting time. Kay long I stood man. So, taod-taod pa siya nagtindog dito. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could. So meaning as this speaker is not yet going or pursuing or continuing on the roads, nagtanaw sa siya. I was still looking at those roads and looked down as far as he can or as far as he could. Giya siyang gisurvey, ano ba, tanaw sa niyang dala. To where it bent in the undergrowth. So, to where it bent. Unsa man ang it na ginamin diri. So the speaker of the poem is looking at one of those roads na nag-diverge kay diba duha man to. He looked at one, that is the it, to where it bent in the undergrowth, meaning he looked at it until where it went down. So hanto dito sa tumoy gitanaw niya. And then dito sa tumoy or somewhere within the road na ay undergrowth, like sagbutan. Okay, there are a lot of shrubs and herbs and other grasses that lie there. So may a point. So at this moment, the speaker is describing the scene. There are two roads that diverge in a yellow wood, and then one road has got so much undergrowth. Okay, now we proceed. And then took the other, just as fair. Okay, so what happens here is that in the first stanza, he saw two roads diverged, and then he looked at one, and then he considered, he pondered, he observed the situation of that road. But then on this line, then took the other. Took is just the past tense of take. So when you take a road, you're not actually taking it na murag gikuha mo. You take the road, meaning you journey it. Okay, manay sabot. So then took the other just as fair. So meaning the speaker here is thinking na, okay, maybe I could just go to the other side, to the other road, just as fair. Just as fair. What does it mean? Maybe it's just fair to go here. Okay, despite not really observing this other side, despite na naka-observe lang siya dito sa Pikas, maybe it's just fair to just go to the other road. Okay, and having perhaps the better claim. Now, the writer or the speaker is having doubts. He thought na it's just fair to go on this other side. And then he says, and having perhaps the better claim. Now, this road na iyang gina-take the moment is now better. But in the previous line, ingon siya nga, it's just fair, but now it's better. Right? Now, we see on the next line why the speaker thought that it is the better road. Because, excuse me, because it was grassy. Because it was grassy and wanted wear. So now, the speaker observed this other road and saw that it was grassy, dagag sagbot, and wanted wear. Dagan siyang sagmot, it's autumn, but it's not destroyed in a way. Wala siya ginaagian yun. I mean, you see, kung maagi ka og kanang kasagbutan, frequently, right? When people pass or tread on uh, some grassy pathway, eventually a pathway will emerge, right? Kanang dili na to siya tubuan og sagbot katong dalan because that road is frequently passed through by people. So the point here is that that road doesn't have that kind of a pathway that outgrowth or undergrowth or grassy stuff are not growing on that path. So the speaker is telling us that this other road is grassy and it's got a lot of herbs and grass and shrubs because it's wanted wear. Right? Now, if we're going to look back on the previous lines, we also know that the other road has a lot of undergrowth. So meaning both roads are fairly the same. One road, the first one, it's got undergrowth, dagan siya sagbot. The other one, grassy and wanted wear, dagan pa siya sagbot. So the point here is that both the roads are fair, okay? But the speaker here thinks na this second road is maybe better, right? Because and having perhaps the better claim. So now we see that the speaker, although observing that the roads are fairly the same, the speaker now thinks that the second road is actually better. right? So there is already this cognitive dissonance that is happening in the mind of the speaker. Okay? So, kaya nanay kabuang gamay sa mind sa speaker. Now, let's proceed. Though, as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. So, what's happening here? Though, as for the passing there, so while nag-pass na siya dito, had warned them really about the same. So, meaning, nothing really of significance happened while nagalakaw siya dito. So, overstatement ba gani ni siya? What do I mean by overstatement? Kanang ginapasobraan niya ang words ba? So for example, had warned them really about the same. Ginaisip niya diri sa had warned, meaning gitamakan na niya ang mga sagbot, right? And then the speaker feels that even though he stepped on that road, it still feels like it is the same with the other road. Even though, let me just restate it again, even though the speaker thinks that he has stepped on that pathway, on that road, okay, na-warn naman siya, still, he thinks that the other road is still about the same, right? So even though the speaker hadn't passed the other road, and at the same time observing the road that he's taking, he thinks that both roads are still the same because he has not worn the road out. Okay, wala niya na daot ug maayo ang agianan. It's still grassy. It's still wanted to wear. So basically, the two roads are still the same, right? So man ang pasabot. And then we proceed. And both that morning equally lay again. There are clues that say that same lang yun ang duha ka road, right? It's equally lay, about the same, it's fair, right? In leaves, no, in leaves, no step had trodden black. So, and both that morning equally lay, in leaves, no step had trodden black. So, like what I mentioned earlier, when we talk about trodden black, right? When you step on dry leaves, they have the tendency to turn black, especially when the soil is a bit wet, right? Pag medyo basa ang yuta, and then above the yuta, there lay dry leaves. If you are to step on those dry leaves, eventually those dry leaves will become black. So the point here is that the speaker has not observed any black leaves there laying on both roads. Okay, so still the roads are similar. The roads are virtually the same. Okay. Oh, I kept the first for another day. And oh, I kept the first for another day. So as what I've mentioned, we have two roads, right? The first road he observed, it has undergrowth, but the speaker took this other road na naay grassy and wanted to wear, right? And the speaker decides, no, it's just the same. Okay. So what happens here is that, oh, I kept the first for another day. What the speaker is trying to say is that I'm going to take the first road maybe tomorrow or sunod ugma, right? Mo na yung ginamin because na-take naman niya ni nga road. So maybe in the next days, the speaker is going to take the other road, the first one na iyang gitanaw. Then we proceed. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, so we have this contradiction, yet knowing how way leads to way, meaning knowing myself, I know how I would proceed. So ano yun, you know what I mean? What does that mean? It means that the speaker knows himself very well to the point that even though he has promised to himself that he is going to take the other road on the other day, the speaker still thinks that because he knows who he is still going to forget about that. So knowing how one leads on to way. So meaning, kabalo na po sa mahitabo. Even though I say na, mano kong buhaton, kabalo hindi ako ko, it's not gonna work, it's not gonna happen. So, mana yung ginagawa. So as you can see so far, the speaker here is contradicting himself, right? Na siya yung tendency to contradict himself. Mo na ang point, right? So moving on. I shall be telling this with a sigh, okay? So I want you to notice the tense, okay? Before this line, puros na past tense, tanan, diverged, right? Stood, so looked, was, um, trodden. So all these verbs, nasa sa past, okay? Pagkabot dire, I shall be telling this with a sigh. Shall be telling this with a sigh. So there is this futuristic na tense. I shall be telling. Dili na siya past, na siya sa future. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence. So at this moment, the speaker is telling us that all that happened in the previous lines, these are all from his memories. So nahitabo na siya sa past. And then we are suddenly brought back here into the present, right? So kani siyang naay roads na ni diverge into two in a yellow wood. Kani nga memory, dugay na kayo ni nga memory sa mind, sa speaker. And then we are pulled back into the present time, and then we see now the speaker talking about his memory. Okay, mo lang nakita mo. So as the speaker is telling this memory, there is a sigh coming from him. So iingon ako ni siya iingon ako ni siya nga mga go. So what do you think is the reason of the sigh? Is the sigh a sign of exhaustion? Kanang gikapoy, kanang sigh, kapoy. Or is it a sigh of regret? I shall be telling this with a sigh, with regret, with pagmahay, right? So maybe it's the second thing. Maybe pagmahay na siya. Somewhere ages and ages hence. So gina-recall na niya yung memory. Two roads diverged in a wood. So the speaker is again thinking about that moment. And so at this moment, he sees himself, right? At first, kanang the two roads diverge into a wood, kana pa lang ang nakita. And then suddenly, and I. So meaning, he sees himself in that memory. I took the one less traveled by. What did he do? Gitake niya tong one less traveled by, meaning katong road na wala kaayo ginaagian. And that has made all the difference. So what does this line mean? It means na siya satisfaction. What? Na siya satisfaction because I took the one less traveled by, it has made all the difference. I mean, my life is better now because I took the one less traveled by. Mo na ang yang ginamin dara. Okay. So at first glance, at first reading, maybe you're going to think about, the poem is about taking the road less traveled by. Maybe the poem is telling us that the better decision is choosing the one that is not being chosen frequently. Katong wala kayo ginapili, mo to ang nindot pilion, right? Murag mao na ang ginamean sa poem. And then because of this last line, and that has made all the difference, it has made a judgment that when you do that, when you take the road less traveled by, when you choose the thing not frequently chosen, it implies that it is a good choice. Mo na ang ginamean niya. But the thing is, here's the catch. That is the common interpretation of this poem. Na the lesson that the poem is telling us is that you have to take the road that is not traveled by, katong wala kayo ginaagian. Or in other words, you choose from all the choices that you have in your life, you choose the one that is not frequently chosen or that is unlikely to be chosen. So for example, if you are going if you're given a chance to take uh take medicine and take business, for example, these are two very different courses. Medicine or business, asa man yung pilion. And maybe your parents are going to tell you that you have to take business because it only lasts for 4 years and it will teach you how to make stuff very profitable. So madato ka sa business. While in medicine, of course, siguro madato ka because the expenses, the patients are going to pay you and all that. But the expense during the long study is hago. Okay? Maybe your parents are going to tell you that the business course is better than the medical course. But because the medical course is the one less traveled by, maybe that is the better decision. So, kay dili man na ang gina-travel by sa imong parents, maybe you're going to choose medicine. And then, you're going to be comforted by this poem kay, ingon ga ito sa Robert Frost. Pagpilion nimo tong wala gina-traveled by mo, tong better decision. That is the wrong interpretation of this poem. Because what Robert Frost is trying to tell us way early in the poem is that the speaker is always contradicting himself. Mo na ang point nila, right? The speaker is at first very sure and then he contradicts himself. And then it happens again. Very sure and then he contradicts himself. So what is happening here is that at the last part of the poem, maybe the speaker is not really sure about this memory because we have been taught and told by Robert Frost that the speaker has been having second thoughts. Where is that in the poem? For example, in the fifth one, two, three, four, five, in the fifth line, the writer or the speaker said, then took the other just as fair. And then in the sixth line, and having perhaps the better claim. He first said that both are fair, but on the next line, the speaker says that the other road is better, right? How is the other road better if both are fair? And then he proceeds that the other road is grassy, wanted wear. So it has out and it has undergrowth. Grassy man siya and wanted wear. So meaning the first road and the second road are the same, are similar, right? And then on the second instance, I kept the first for another day. He tells himself that in the next day, in the other coming days, I am going to take the other road. And yet he contradicts himself once again, yet knowing how way leads on to way. So the speaker knows himself very well that he is going to not take the other road in the next days, right? So the poet Robert Frost has educated us that the speaker is unsure during the course of the speaker's life. everything is unsure for him. He decides this and then he decides the other. He judges this, but he judges the other. So contradicting. And then at the last portion, on the last four lines, we see him or we see her, the speaker, somewhere ages and ages hence. But before that, he said, I shall be telling this with a sigh. So there's a regret. Ganun nag-regret man siya. We don't know. Maybe it is not really the road that he took, or maybe dili siya sure, or maybe there's something there na wala niya nabuhat. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverge in a wooden eye. I took the one less traveled by. So he told us, the speaker tells us that he took the one less traveled by, but maybe the speaker here is not really sure, because you have to consider that this happened ages and ages ago, meaning the speaker is really, really old, considering the memory loss and all that stuff. Maybe there is something wrong or something unreliable about the speaker's memory. Although the speaker knows this, na murag na ay something unsure sa iyang memory, still he comforts himself by saying na, and that has made all the difference. So there is this doubt na maybe I did not take that road. Maybe took I did not take any of the roads. But I tell myself that I have taken the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. So murag, I am comforting myself. I'm telling a story to myself in order for me not to doubt so much. So murag yun. So the point here is that there is a choice. And somehow when you choose one, you tell yourself that it is the better choice. Wala siya yun. Wala siya yung point. Okay, kung sa bias pa na, this is what we call the hindsight bias, the positive hindsight bias. Okay, kaya naman tayo negative hindsight bias. Sa ng hindsight bias, a hindsight bias is a belief that you have chosen the right thing. Okay, so one example of a hindsight bias is what the Pinkalawans, katong mga mga woke millennials, woke people na nagka-support kang Lenny, mga sila nga tama nga kami after the incident of Duterte and Marcos, breaking apart, right? Diverging. So after that incident, mayroon sila nga, tama nga kami. There is really no unity. That is hindsight bias because they're telling themselves na, tama palagi ko. Mali jud to akong, mali jud to sila. Tama jud ko dahil. So that is a hindsight bias. But in this case, the writer or the speaker is committing hindsight bias as well. Mamayon siya na, tama ginaya ko ang gitake na road. Right, okay. It has made all the difference. I'm like this now because I took that road. And once again, that is a hindsight bias. And when something is a bias, it's a belief. It's an unfounded belief. Wala siya proof, wala siya significance, wala relevance, wala truth diha when it's bias. So mo nang nahitabo. It's uncertainty. So when you hear people interpreting this poem, even your future teachers, if you hear them telling you that this poem is about taking the road less traveled by, deciding for certain that this road is better because people do not take this road often, and that will make all the difference, that is the better choice. That is a wrong interpretation, man. I would argue it's a very wrong interpretation because the writer has shown us time and time again, two times, maybe three, two times in the poem at least, that the speaker is having doubts about this memory, is having doubts about giving decisions. The writer, the speaker is unsure. And so we cannot trust the speaker in the final portions of the poem telling us that the road less traveled by is a better road. Maybe the speaker here hasn't really traveled at all. Maybe the speaker didn't take one road or the other road. Maybe the speaker is telling us that he went back because after all, he is really not sure. Right? Masig mauna ang one less traveled by because you don't travel by on the road back. Right? Kanang usahay lang mong kaya ta mo balik. So meaning, it could be that the road less traveled by is the road going back. So I would argue that that happened in the poem. Okay? Kasi nga na siya. Now, let's proceed here on the boxes. Okay? So the central metaphor, the roads symbolize life's journey, and the branch represents decision making. Okay, fine. The road, that single road, it means our journey, and then when it diverges, it presents to us opportunities for decision making. Okay, maybe that's one central metaphor. We can have that. The nature, second box, the nature of choices and their impact on individuals' life. Choices significantly shape one's life. The speaker reflects on the roads not taken. Okay. At the end of the poem, the speaker actually reflects about that decision that happened many, many years ago. And uh, the choices that the speaker has made many, many years ago has affected his whole life. In fact, at the very last line, he said that, and that has made all the difference. So meaning that choice that he took many, many years ago significantly affected his whole life. Mao na iyahang point here. Let's proceed to the third box. What the speaker feels and the emotions are conveyed. Okay, the speaker is content with a chosen path, expressing satisfaction and fulfillment. Okay, this is what many books or teachers will tell you, that the speaker is content with the chosen path. Maybe that is the correct answer when this comes into the exams. But the point here is that, as for me, the speaker is not really content. The speaker is hiding, or the speaker rather is making a face of contentment. Meaning, nag-pretend lang siya na siya contentment. Nga naman ko nakaingon, because in the final portions of the poem, we see that I shall be telling this with a sigh. What is that? Sigh of regret, right? Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverge and a wooden eye. So the speaker here is telling this memory with a sigh, na siya regret. When you have regrets, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're content, right? Kung kontento ka, but at the same time you have regrets, that is cognitive dissonance, man. When you're content, you don't have any regrets, right? That is the point. The speaker is content with the chosen path, expressing satisfaction and fulfillment. Satisfaction, fulfillment, those feelings are fictitious. Okay? Kanang ginaingon lang na niya sa sarili na murag, satisfied ko sa akong life karon, satisfied ko and I'm fulfilled. I'm okay. But really, the speaker is just telling that story to himself na, okay ra ko, na I'm satisfied, I'm fulfilled. But really, he is telling this with a sigh. Okay? Ngano naaman ang telling this with a sigh? It's a negative diri sa positives na iyang ginaingon. Because maybe the speaker is having second thoughts. Or maybe the speaker is really unsure. Or maybe in reality, the speaker is really regretting something. Right? So it's not satisfaction, it's not fulfillment. But some books, some exams, some teachers are going to tell you this and know that they are wrong. Okay. But you just have to go on with them. I mean, go with the flow or just agree with them. Or if there's a discussion, maybe talk about it. But if this appears in the exams, for example, you just take this uh choice para mahuman so that you get 1 point for that question. But really in your mind, really think about it. It's not having the feelings of satisfaction and fulfillment. Anyway, let's proceed. For the last box, what the road symbolize and what less traveled by means. So the road symbolize life choices and the less traveled path represents unconventional decisions. Okay, so the road symbolize life choices. Okay, because it's diverging. So you have to choose. Okay, fine, it's choices. And the less traveled path represents unconventional decisions. This is true in the first, I mean, essentially, when I talk about less traveled by, it's a decision that is not commonly or frequently chosen. So it is a path. It is a decision that represents unconventional, meaning uh, not conventional, not common, not traditional. Okay, not always. That is unconventional. Unconventional. So, yeah, it only means that that road is an unconventional decision. There's a motorcycle in the neighborhood. It's invading all the audio here in this virtual lecture, but bear with me. So it's less troubled by, it represents unconventional decisions, yes. But in our interpretation, we take this a notch further, right? Kanang i-take na to siya higher. Ginaingon na to, we're telling that maybe the speaker has really not taken any of the roads. Maybe the speaker has taken the road back. Kay mao man to ang pinaka-less traveled by, right? Ang road pabalik. So maybe the speaker has done that. And maybe the speaker, having really remembered that moment, wala niya to gi-make as true sa story na ihang gitel sa iyang sarili. Maybe he really knew that he really did not take any of the roads. Maybe he went home, he went back. And because that decision is very painful and very regretting, hence the sigh, the speaker has decided at that moment, during the recollection of the memory, the speaker has decided at that moment that it would be a better thing for him to tell himself that he indeed has took the one less traveled by. And the listener would assume that the road less traveled by is one of the roads na mentioned speaker. But really, in the mind of the speaker, maybe he's talking about the road back. Okay, so maybe that is the less traveled path. But again, if you see something like this in the exam or somewhere else, you just sit there and choose it because it could be the right answer. But always remember that in your mind, you do not agree. Okay. So in a way, this lecture about the road not taken is about the road not taken. Because we all know that many people interpret this road, I mean this poem, as, you know, deciding to take the one less traveled by and then being happy about it. But really, the road not taken is about the road not taken. The road is not taken. That's the point. The speaker did not take the road. So maybe the speaker just long stood there and then stared at the bench and observed the undergrowth, observed the grassy and wanted where terrain. And then at the very last moment, he did not decide and he went back. So maybe the poem is not about decisions. Maybe it's about not making any decision, which is itself a decision. So maybe it's like that. Maybe this is a very tragic, very sad poem. Maybe this is not a poem about you know triumphing in life because you took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Maybe the poem is not like that. Maybe the poem is about doubt. The poem is about indecision. The poem is about regret because the road has not been taken. So, wala siya. We have discussed, or ako lang ba ang nag-discuss? We have talked about the road not taken. And I encourage you to read this again and again, perhaps. And then if you have your own interpretations, that is good because it only means that you are using your brains. That is the point of this schooling, for you to use your brain. If you disagree with my interpretation, that is good. But bear in mind that if you have thesis, meaning you have your own idea, your own belief, that should be backed up by proof. So where are you going to get your proof? You get your proof from the parts of the poem so that you have a support for your claim. Nothing is wrong as long as you can support it. That is the point. Okay, so see you in the next video. The next video, we're going to talk about the gift of the Magi. So have your break, and yeah, that is it. It is me signing off. Bye-bye.